The concept of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB, has existed for decades in the US and many other countries. Still, one could argue that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the creation of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission are what really forced businesses to take DEIB seriously. At that time, companies began changing their hiring practices to stay in line with the law. Over time, however, DEIB has become more than just an issue of legal compliance. Companies have come to recognize the very real benefit that authentic and intentional DEIB policies have on employee engagement, experience, development, growth, and retention. This is backed by a growing body of research, including a McKinsey study, which found that companies with diverse executive teams were more likely to financially outperform their less diverse peers. And a MentorcliQ study that found companies with women CEOs and mentoring programs were 42% more profitable in 2021 than their counterparts that lacked mentoring and women CEOs. Although DEIB has functionally been codified within US law for nearly 60 years, it's still a hotly debated topic that boils down to one simple question. What is DEIB anyway? Hi, I'm Liliana. Welcome to MentorcliQ's Mentoring Masterminds, where we combine our industry-leading experience in employee engagement strategies with actionable advice directly from HR leaders who represent our Fortune 500 clients. DEIB can feel like a difficult topic to talk about, especially right now. While for many of us, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is distinctly important, there's still roaming confusion about what this term means. In this video, we are going to help break down what each of the words in this concept means and how to make it work effectively at your company. But first, we make these videos because we love seeing mentoring programs succeed and careers positively impacted. Be sure to like and subscribe so you know when we release new content like this every week. And leave us a comment if you found this video helpful and want to engage a bit more on the topic. Let's start with the first word in the acronym, diversity. Diversity is often seen as a measure of a company's demographic and psychographic DNA. Diverse companies successfully attract and retain a mixture of employees from different nationalities, ethnic groups, gender identities, socioeconomic backgrounds, educational levels, and lived experiences. Diversity is perhaps the most visual aspect of DEIB, but importantly, diversity should not be reduced to just hiring people because they look different. Both supporters and many skeptics of organizational diversity often assume that focusing on the visual aspects of the concept is all that's needed. However, diversity extends far beyond that. Organizations that value and build strategies around real diversity are those that take into consideration the whole person and not just what he or she looks like. From there, companies that value diversity strive to have people whose experiences differ in ways that bring incredible value to the organization. When experiences are taken into consideration, companies will naturally have people who look different. And that's because racial, ethnic, and cultural differences often lead to differences in lived experiences. Ethnic and racial diversity is an important part of that, but it's not the end-all, be-all of diversity goals. A DEIB approach that values and fosters diversity will lead to companies with employees who differ in a myriad of ways, including age, race, ethnicity, religion, political perspective, physical abilities, socioeconomic upbringing, different educational journeys, and much more. Equity is the word we use to explain how a company accounts for the historic disadvantages that different groups have faced in the workplace. These areas include hiring practices, employee engagement strategies, development and learning opportunities, promotion strategies, and more. When people push back on what they see as an unfairness in DEIB, quite often it's associated with something a company is doing for the sake of equity. That's understandable. Equity can feel unfair and uncomfortable, especially when companies want to be seen as treating everyone the same. Companies rarely treat all employees the same in practice. Biases have always existed in processes that deal with a human element such as hiring, promotions, development opportunities, and layoff. Companies that take equity into consideration are those that deploy deliberate practices that reduce or eliminate such biases. They work to remove barriers that could negatively impact employees who have historically been hurt by these practices. Equity and diversity are often the most challenging parts of DEIB, and understandably, the ones that tend to be the most considerable financial and reputational consequences when done wrong. Inclusion is seen in how companies proactively integrate individuals into the organization in effective and authentic ways. Think of it like this. Once a company hires employees, it needs to consider how and where those employees can best feel included based on their background and experiences. Yes, each employee is hired to do a job, and their primary fit will be within their team. But employees are far more likely to be engaged and to stay if they feel like they can find a good relationship fit within that organization, and if they feel like their differences and uniqueness are valued. For a company, that means thinking beyond just the onboarding period. Inclusion involves the action that companies use to ensure these individuals are actively taking part in the workplace community. It also means making sure these employees actually have a workplace community to be involved in the first place. Many different strategies fulfill this role. Employee resource groups, or ERGs, for example, are a time-tested inclusion strategy that almost every company now uses. And experience-based mentoring programs are a great way to not only view employee development through the lens of inclusion, but take an active approach to equity concerns as well. Belonging is the newest addition to what was formerly just called DEI. A good way to understand belonging is to think of it as the end goal for diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. If diversity, equity, and inclusions are accounted for, employees are more likely to feel a sense of belonging, or that they are a true and valued part of the team. Belonging may feel soft or too emotional to measure, but it's actually a metric that can be calculated, as long as you establish a baseline before starting your DEIB approach. DEIB is often measured through qualitative data gathered through employee feedback surveys. However, the positive impact of DEIB can and should be determined using quantitative measurements. Areas such as employee productivity, rotation, performance reviews, and internal mobility are all good places to measure your DEIB KPIs. Again, effective measurement starts with having a baseline. That means you will need to understand what these numbers look like before enacting any DEIB strategies, and then measure them afterward. A lack of measurement is often what trips up many HR leaders and executives who are skeptical of the impact that DEIB has on an organization. However, when DEIB is properly understood, fully supported, well-structured, and intentionally measured, its positive impact will be seen throughout the organization. How does your company support DEIB? Let us know in the comments below. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is still a growing field. Employees are striving to make DEIB more value at their companies, and many executive leaders are starting to better understand its value. Still, more needs to be done, and that starts with intentionally designed DEIB strategies that impact all aspects of the employee experience. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to visit us at MentorcliQ.com and follow us on LinkedIn for more mentoring program insights and advice.